This is Nathalie Lebrun.
And I'm Judy Rich. Together, we welcome you to LeadSpeak, school-based SLP podcast.
Whether you're an SLP currently navigating leadership waters, an SLP who is eager to shape the future of speech language pathology in schools, or a student who's preparing to join our profession, we welcome you all to this conversation. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning.
Happy last episode of our first season of LeadSpeak.
Can you believe it? It's been so much fun. I never dreamed that it would be this much fun to be involved with a podcast and talk to so many cool SLP leaders.
Oh, for sure. Like my skill set when it comes to like audio engineering, I feel so much more confident just thinking back to like our first episode where my sound was super wonky and all that. And I figured out I didn't plug in my microphone the right way. And then another week where my internet kept on going out, which was really frustrating. We just like hardwired my computer. I got a new computer in order to do this podcast because my old one just couldn't keep up. It's been super cool. And like what I've really enjoyed, honestly, which like was like a big reason why I wanted to do this with you, is just the ability to like meet new people and be able to like get so many people to talk back and just say like, yes, like this makes sense to me, or actually my experience is so different, that kind of thing. So that's been really special.
You know, we've survived storms, we've survived unstable internet, we've survived scheduling challenges because everybody that has been a guest has been super busy and involved with their leadership roles. And so it's just been fun to see the trajectory of the season, of season one, and to now get the chance to reflect on the episodes and our learning about leadership through season one.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's go through all the episodes briefly, right? Just talk about what we thought about.
Okay. Charlotte McCrae Green is the Executive Director of Special Education, Cherokee County School District in Georgia. And it was just a pure pleasure to talk with her and to listen to her talk about her passion for leadership and the things that excite her most about leadership. She describes herself as a big picture person. So she said she was a home run hitter, but not a base runner. And one of the things she does in her leadership as she builds effective teams is she enjoys empowering others. And that's her main objective in leadership, because she was empowered by the leaders who she worked with prior to getting into leadership roles. So it's this passing the baton of empowerment in order to grow leaders. One of the interesting things that she said was she told us a story about learning to drive with her mom. And she was at a stoplight. She was first in line. The light turned green. She pressed the gas to go, and her mom held out her arm across her chest and said, "Stop, wait." And she argued back and said, "But I have the green. I have the right to go. It's my turn to go. I'm not making a mistake." And her mom said, "No, you need to look both ways." She said, "No, I'm right. I have the green light." And her mom said, "But do you want to be dead right?" And so for young leaders, I thought about myself back a few decades and thought about, boy, there were times when I wanted to argue the issue and be right more than I wanted to maintain or sustain the relationship. So as I grow in leadership, I'm going to keep on thinking about that. Do I want to be dead right, or do I want to keep the relationship going? Charlotte's one word to describe leadership is empower. And so that theme kind of rests across what she talked to us about. She also talked to us a lot about building effective teams, because she's a big person, concept map kind of leader. She's very careful to build into her team people who can do all the detail work and carry out the vision. And then so creating a safe space is a common phrase these days. And Charlotte has flipped that to work with her team members as a leader so that she creates a brave space so that everybody on her team can discuss difficult issues, can have differences of opinion, and can come come out with a better solution because it's a place that is absolutely safe enough to be brave. And I really appreciated that in terms of Charlotte's episode with us. So, Nat, talk to us about Joanne's episode.
Joanne, oh my gosh. She talked about Enneagrams, which just like made my heart so incredibly happy. She shared with us that she was an Enneagram, or she is an Enneagram 1. And what I know of Joanne just from watching her speak during presentations or the work I've done with her on committees, I mean, that just fits her to a T, and how she's able to harness those innate skills that come with that Enneagram type into the various works that she's been doing at school districts and the university level and the state level and the national level. I'm like, yes, that's perfect. I think what was really cool about Joanne's episode was talking a lot about how relationships really, really matter to her, and how if you choose to build transformative relationships, meaning you get to know people, what they're good at, what they're interested in, and what they really don't enjoy, that can really move the ball forward for the goals that you have set for yourself and for your team. She also talked a lot about how you need to own what you're doing as a leader, whether you have a formal leadership role or an informal leadership role. Just really own what you believe in and what you want to do and the mission that you have, and just go full force at it, which was really meaningful to me, because when I think about my work with public education, there's definitely some topics that I'm much more fired up about and we'll get on my soapbox about for a couple of minutes. And there's other topics, for whatever reason, are just not as meaningful to me, or I just don't have enough experience with to be able to talk about them and really advocate for them as strongly as maybe other people. And so for me, it just made me really think about like making sure that I'm surrounding myself with like a group of colleagues that may have very different clinical and professional experiences from me, that can speak to topics that I can't as well, to make sure that we're really advocating for all aspects of our role and all students that we support. Her quote that really kind of stood out to me in this episode was, "Be the leader your team needs," which I'm like, yes, like, how can I do that for my team? Where can I be flexible? And it also begs the question of like, am I taking time to figure out what my team needs? Right? Or am I kind of coming in with some preset ideas and judgments, and I'm really not meeting them where they are? So it was a really fantastic episode. What was next? Who was next? It was Bethany, right?
Bethany Whidden, who is director over special services at a county education service center. And she talked a lot about some of the same things that Charlotte and Joanne had talked about: building teams, relational leadership. And but she also threw in some interesting ideas about um, learning from others who had been leading her. She said she grew from watching leaders around her teach her, show her how to do things, walk alongside her. And so those are some of the things that she likes to do in her leadership role. She In fact, her word about leadership is action. And you can tell from listening to her that she is action oriented and all about solving problems. She really is committed to creative problem solving, with educators banding together to solve big problems in education. She also talked about reaching out and seeking involvement. So she's all about networking and asking to be involved and seeing a problem and wanting to be part of the solution. So her problem solving and creative problem solving approaches cross over specific problems at work as well as broader problems in terms of the OSPEAK Association, the school, SLP and Audiology Association Coalition in Ohio. She talked about credibility and honesty and dependability as character traits in leadership. One of my favorite things that she talked about in terms of problem solving is that she said that we can visit the problem zone, but we're not going to live there. We're not going to pack our suitcases or unpack our suitcases in the problem zone. We'll visit it, and then we'll know what the problems are, then we'll move on to problem solving. And I thought that was a great way to talk about it. And I think that you were going to make us some t-shirts about that, Bethany.
I'm still working on that. Maybe that'll be a summer project, Judy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe so. But I really appreciated what she said about mentioning people who had mentored her and her commitment to mentoring others and to being a model for others and being actively involved in leadership. So that's what Bethany shared with us. And our next guest was Cherry.
And Cherry was so good. Oh my gosh, Judy, like when I was editing Cherry's episode, usually when we record these episodes, we end up recording about an hour's worth of talking between the three of us, like two of us and the guests. And with Cherry's episode, I really, really struggled to be like, okay, like what isn't as pertinent to our season's mission. And so it was so good. We had to make it into 2 episodes, which was really kind of cool. So with Cherry, like her word was teamwork. And I'm like, of course it is. Of course your word is teamwork, Cherry. Like, again, just thinking about her, what I've seen of her, what I've heard about her. I mean, that is the ultimate word for Cherry. I can't think of how she would operate in isolation ever, because she is so well connected. And it didn't come because she has this super extroverted connector personality, right? Like she talked to us about how, in fact, like she's a little bit more of an introvert, and she's had to really put a lot of effort into connecting with people. But when she was given the opportunity to try new things out that were maybe just a scotch outside of the SLP lane, she took that full force, right? And so she was able to tap into more of her like innate interests and abilities of like seeing the details of the project through and really shining there and becoming like a really valuable member of a team. So, for example, she talked to us about how she has worked in a lot of different committees, and she gets appointed to these like financial roles on committees. And she's like, it's not because I'm really good with math, right? But because of her work and because of her reputation, people are like, we need Cherry on this team because she's going to get it done, right? She's going to bring in her awesome outlines where people feel valued, they feel like they can contribute, and we're going to keep them accountable. We're going to bring Cherry here because like she can see a project through, she can enroll the right people from multidisciplinary groups to make sure that we get it done right. So I just thought there was like so many great nuggets of information throughout both of her episodes. And she, of course, wins the alliteration award for our first season because she talked about how her leadership attitudes are passion, patience, and persistence while putting plans and processes in place. Well done. We'll send her a trophy or something, a Dave and Buster's gift card for like some bowling or something. But I just thought it was fabulous because again, for me, when I reflect on her episode, like as a leader, I definitely have the passion piece. I have the persistence piece. I can stick onto a topic and not let it go until something changes. The thing I'm not as good at, and I need to keep on exercising this, is my patience piece. I think personally speaking and professionally speaking, I'm not a super patient person. I want to see things happening. And it was really, really great to hear her talk about the value of patience when you're working in a system that's just so multi layered with such deep rooted processes that like are hard to change because they're so entrenched, right? So I just love that episode. It was so good. Then we had Jessica, right?
Yes, Jessica Abel. She has most recently served as the Assistant Director of Special Education for the Central Islip School District, which is in New York. She talked to us about her leadership journey, starting out first as a contract provider in the schools. And so we had an interesting conversation about the difference between being an employee and being a contract provider. We also talked about the differences between New York and Texas, because New York is a strong union state and Texas is not a union state; it's a right to work state. And there are organizational and infrastructure changes, differences that apply to these states because of union or non-union. But the union aspect in New York has impacted Jessica's journey for sure. She talked a lot about taking responsibility for building trust among team members. She wanted to be open to having conversations that were brave conversations, like Charlotte talked about, um, and having an open door and providing the opportunity to discuss real issues. So Jessica said she is all about the real talk, and we're going to make another T-shirt about all about the real talk, because it's very important for us as leaders to not shy away from or find a way to thoughtfully, respectfully, and directly, honestly talk about the real issues going on in schools these days. Learning from other leaders, and she had learned from some transformational leaders. She had also learned what not to do based on her experiences with leaders. And that fueled her desire to be approachable and to build trust with the people on her team. She also believes in raising up those you work with and celebrating them. She, in addition to being all about the real talk, the other thing that she said that really resonated with me is that she said that hope lights the fire for meaningful change. And that's so true. Now, Jessica's word for leadership is elusive. So I can put all of the leadership words that our guests gave us and that we commented on into a sentence, but I'm going to hold elusive as an outlier because I think it will direct us towards what we want to talk about in season 2, if that's okay. So let me see if I can do this. So let me say the words. Charlotte said empower. Joanne said journey. Bethany said action. Cherry said teamwork. Nat said community. And I said engagement. So leadership is a journey where we use teamwork to build a strong community of SLPs that are empowered and engaged to take bold action on behalf of the students we serve. So elusive is not in there, but I think elusive, when we feel like we're not grabbing onto leadership or when there are very difficult problems to solve, that we can go back to what I talked about in our very first launch episode about the movie The Martian and Mark Watney, and talking about problem solving, and things are definitely going to go south, and you think you're not going to make it back from space, or you think you're not going to make it through this particular crisis in schools. So at some point, Mark Watney said, in talking to some future astronauts, everything's going to go south, and you think this is it. So you can either accept that or you can get to work. And I think that's what leadership is. When leadership feels elusive, maybe what we can do is get to work, and you just begin. You do the math, you solve one problem, You solve the next problem, you solve the next problem, all the while building relationships and building a strong team. So if you solve enough problems, you get to come home from space. If we solve enough leadership problems in school-based SLP service delivery, then we get good outcomes for the students that we serve. So that kind of pulls everything together. Plus, Nat maybe builds a teaser for the elusive things about leadership that are the hard things to talk about, like staffing and scheduling and contract providers and unfilled vacancies and service delivery and workload and time management, that maybe we want to hear from our listeners to think about talking about in season 2. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like if I reflect on the feedback that I've gotten from our community through Facebook and through Instagram or through emails, what I'm hearing is people are like, they want to know how are other leaders addressing these like global topics that no matter where you are in the country, no matter how big your team is or not big your team is, how many campuses your district has or whatever, they want to know like how are people thinking through these big ticket issues. So absolutely what you mentioned as far as staffing and retention and that kind of thing. The other topics that have really picked up a lot of steam and are all over social media as it relates to speech pathology and public education is artificial intelligence. So, what do you do as a leader when people come to your office, knock on the door, and say, what's our position statement for using AI as part of speech therapy or evaluation? What are you going to say? What's our position statement? Right. The other big thing that has been continuing to grow and to emerge and really start to make its way into public education is neuroaffirming care. What does that look like in public education under an IDEA model, right? So people will come to your door, knock on your door, and say, how do we talk about neuroaffirming care in public education? How do we think through neuroaffirming assessment? How do we think about neuroaffirming IEPs? And how do we marry that with student-based outcomes, right? So those are some big topics that we're going to try to tackle in season 2. And so we're, I think what we need from our community, Judy, is, we would love to be able to include guests who can speak to that. We're not looking for the bullet, the silver bullet answer. No one has them, because if they did, then we wouldn't be talking about it in every single conference you ever go to, on social media. Like, we don't think anybody has the silver bullet, but what we're looking for is like, how do you think about it and how do you framework it? What's easy, what's hard, and then what are the questions that still kind of remain on these topics. So I will be posting on Facebook and Instagram over the next couple of weeks about these topics, and I would love for our community to maybe nominate themselves as a person who can speak to these things, or if they know somebody really great that they have found valuable guidance and insight from, love for them to get tagged in and bring them on board for season 2.
That sounds great. We want to hear from everybody about how we can have real talk about the real issues that you all are facing as SLP leaders in
Yeah,
schools.
totally. So Judy, I want to hear from you. So we kind of summarize everybody's episode pretty quickly. When you think about season 1 of our show, what are like 2 themes that kind of emerged for you, as far as what our guests are talking about and kind of like where you are right now in your leadership journey?
Okay. It was hard to pick because there was a lot of continuity, a lot of themes emerged. But my 2 that resonated and that I've been thinking about, the first theme is that we had several guests who were big picture, conceptual, visionary leaders. And then we had several guests who were people who led through getting things done through productivity, through moving in the right direction, getting all the arrows pointed in the right direction, but much more comfortable being the detail person. So we heard from Charlotte about being a home run hitter versus and not being a base runner, but her team members were her base runners for her. We heard from Cherry, who enjoys detail work and who looks to being a leader through activating the vision of the district that she was working with, or the group, the association that she works with. So Bethany, also detail oriented and loves the detail and loves activating leadership by working through action plans and getting things done to move towards the vision that's been set by her organization. Then we come to you and me, Nat. Cherry told us that we were both strategic. If you were looking at the Gallup model, we're both strategic in terms of our top 5 strengths. That's true. But we both can manage details really well. So I see that us as having found a way to be present in leadership with both the visioning aspect and the follow through detail work while building strong teams. Joanne Wishman is the same way. She is all about relationships, but she is very committed to developing vision and mission statements for her group that align with what the school district is doing. But then she manages to put action plans in place. And third thing that she does, and Cherry talked about this as well, is just having fun while you do it. So that's another thing that I think we need to keep talking about, is how do you manage to make this fun as a leader? So that's my first theme, that it doesn't matter whether you're big picture or detail oriented. Just come with who you are and build your leadership skills and be there for your people in terms of building a team that is balanced, and so that you can have both aspects of the visioning and the follow-up for action. My second theme that I noticed is we heard from several of our guests that they learned about leadership through experiencing how they were led. And Bethany talked about it, Cherry talked about it, I believe Charlotte talked about it. And that's resonated with me because that's certainly my experience. I have been mentored by powerhouse educators in Texas and still have ongoing strong relationships with those people, even though they're retired and I'm retired from school district work. We still maintain our relationship, and it brings a fullness to life and is always thought provoking and continues to be about leadership, but it's more of a personal leadership model. So I really, really enjoyed that theme of learning from others and then making leadership sort of a generational aspect, or having leadership have a generational aspect to it, that I am mentored and I also have a commitment to mentor others and to be a leader where others can identify the leading that I'm doing. So those are my 2 themes. What were your 2 themes?
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of that idea of mentoring and connecting with others. I think the thing that I heard over and over again, I think it's just the season of life that I'm in right now and the season of my leadership space that I'm in right now, is just our guests, how they harnessed the opportunities that come from building friendships and network beyond the safe harbor and the familiar harbor of speech language pathology and speech language pathologists, right? I think every single guest gave us examples of how helpful and nurturing it was for them to have connections beyond the speech pathology department and even beyond like the assessment department, to really connect with curriculum and instruction, with the finance division, with teacher training, all kinds of different people with different missions. and making sure that we know what they care about and the problems that they are having, so that we can come in as a speech language pathologist and say, we can help you resolve that issue, right? Together, we can move the ball forward for both of our students and our staff together. Charlotte talked about the interconnectedness of schools. Joanne talked about being in the room where decisions are being made, right? Kind of like a throwback to Hamilton again, right? Like there's a great song talking about the room where it happens, right? Like you want to be invited into that room, or you want to know where the door is to that room so that you can sneak in sometimes. But if you get invited into that room, you want to be there, right? You don't want speech in all of its impacts and tentacles to be thought of after the fact or not thought of at all. You want to be there as a leader. So, how do you find out where the door is, right? How do you find out what room that meeting is being held in, right? It's by stepping outside of your speech lane and making friends, going out to lunch, maybe meeting up for coffee, whatever it is, so that people can think of you. And when they're working on a project, kind of like with Cherry, how she gets invited to these super interesting projects that weren't necessarily speech directly related, but in the long term, she took care of her speech people because she was working on the finance committee, because she was at the executive board and could make decisions alongside them. So that to me was like really meaningful, as far as like making sure that I am finding and making time and choosing opportunities to work on things that are not just for my speech peeps. So that was my first theme. My second theme is kind of like a annex of this idea, where I need to become much more fluent in the language and the priorities of things that exist outside of speech language pathology in a school district. At the local level, so within my LEA, within the state level, and within the federal level, right? To me, speech is for the quote, like soccer is life, from Ted Lasso, soccer is life. Like to me, like speech is life, right? Which we could do a whole episode about how that's healthy and unhealthy at the same time, but I digress. So it's what I heard all of our guests say is that they were able to be more effective in change and influence once they were able to directly speak to the sticky areas and the concern areas of other teams, right? And so Bethany talked about growing confidence by purposefully choosing professional education opportunities that had nothing to do with speech pathology, right? And so whether it was getting certifications in education management, whether it was attending trainings that had to do with more of like legal, compliancy, finance stuff, she experienced tremendous value in choosing that. Jessica talked about growing her ability to participate in union negotiations. I mean, I don't know about you, Judy, but like when I went to grad school, we didn't talk about union negotiations, right? Like I am not versed in that space, but like if you work in a state where that is a reality, how can you affect change if you can't participate in that really critical kind of like linchpin area that can affect all decision making? So that was my other theme that I noticed. And so for me, what I'm trying to do is like try to go beyond my usual go-to places for professional development at this point. So there's some things that I love to access to grow my speechy brain, right? But now what I need to do, and what I need to further research is like, what are other professional development opportunities, whether it's like, web-based webinar stuff, or face-to-face or whatever, that are maybe a little bit outside of speech lane and have to do more with state level issues, or have to do with systems and finance. Like for me, like finance is like not great. I'm not great with finance. That is not where my brain goes to normally. But I understand that if I want to continue to be impactful as a leader and drive change, like I need to force myself to get better in that area. Because if I'm not, at the end of the day, like everything is finance, right? Everything is money. So if I don't understand that, then I can't speak to it intelligently, and then I won't be able to make the waves that I want to. So those were my two themes. So there's a video that I watched, Judy, and I shared it with you, and I shared it with our community on Facebook the other day. And it is the commencement address for NYU Steinhardt for the class of 2024. So it literally like happened just a few weeks ago, and it's with Miss Rachel. Judy, are you aware of Miss Rachel? Like, is she a person on your radar?
She was not before I
She was
watched the
not.
video. I did not know Miss Rachel, but I want to know Miss Rachel.
You need to know Miss Rachel. And I speak to that as a mom of a 3-year-old, because Miss Rachel has been an integral part of our lives for the last couple of years. So, in a nutshell, Miss Rachel emerged like just a few years ago, and she's on all over YouTube, and she makes these super interactive and also like really evidence-based videos to help young children grow out their language skills. She has this whole new thing on like phonemic awareness going on right now, like, and their music, and there's images, and there's like animals. Anyway, my son Olivier loves Miss Rachel, and it's a global phenomena. Like it's really really snazzy, and so she takes her music teaching background and her early childhood background, and she and her husband made this show, and now they've racked up over 6 billion views on YouTube, and a lot of them are from our house here. So anyway, so when I saw this video, I'm like, oh my gosh, how perfect of a timing, right? So I would definitely highly recommend that if you haven't seen it, you should definitely go see it. But she, in her commencement address to the graduates, she talks about how she was reading through a program, like a training that was coming up, and it was describing the speaker as this like expert in early language development and childhood development, and she was like super excited to like go to this training, right? And she's like, oh, I wonder who the speaker is. And then she says in her commencement address, she's like, oh, it's me. I'm the expert, right? Like I am the person that people want to come and watch. And she speaks about her imposter syndrome, and how like she always has kind of waited for more powerful people to give her power. And so she shares that when her son was very young, he had a speech delay, and she went to the internet looking for like interactive videos for him to watch to like kind of help support his speech development, and she didn't find anything. And so she's like, well, maybe I'll just start something, and then a big real company can come along and buy this show, and maybe I can just kind of help. And their initial goal was just to get 1 million views. That was their initial goal. But they ended up reaching 6 billion people. And so I share this story, and I really like the timing of it between this episode and her commencement address is just really, really nice, because she talks about how she, like, we never know what's going to happen, right? But we can guarantee that nothing will change if we don't try, which I think, like, for me, like, speaks very much to the heart of leadership, that, like, sometimes we're waiting for the other person to initiate change and be a driver for change. but we're it. Like, this is it. Like, we can't, it's almost like waiting for Godot, right? Like, we're waiting for Godot to show up and take care of our speech things in public education. And maybe what we really need to think about is like, we're it, we're the one. And so I'm super excited that we have some really amazing thought leaders and colleagues in our space, as obvious, as shown through the first season with all our guests. And I'm even more excited for next season to really get down into like the weeds a little bit and enter those kind of scary topics and have some real talk and like talk about like what is it that people are thinking about like right now, that people are coming to you as a leader and saying, what's your opinion about this? How are we going to tackle that? And so I'm ready for it, Judy. Hey, I wanted to do some rapid fire stuff with you because we put everybody through that torture this season. But I have 3 last questions for you.
Okay.
Are you ready for them?
I am.
Okay. So thinking about your current kind of place in our industry and in leadership, right? You're really influential. You're working with a lot of individuals who are coming into our profession, right? They're graduate students or they're undergraduate students coming into our profession. And so thinking about the first season that we just did, what did you learn that will change the way you inspire the next generation of SLPs?
I think I'm going to try to make it very tangible, connected to a belief system that I have about the universe. So, with graduate students and with SLPs entering their CF year or in their early years, I'm going to take the advice from Bethany, who said that you just need to network. Whether you're shy or not shy, whether you're introvert, extrovert, you need to introduce yourself to leaders. You need to see how you can be connected to leaders in conversation or on projects or um, help solve problems. She said that leaders want other leaders to succeed. And so what we need to do is just build a strong network. And you do that by walking up to people and introducing yourself and talking about what you're interested in, talking about what you noticed about them and their leadership, and asking for a piece of advice or asking for contact information, and then follow through with that so that you build relationships. And then that will lead to some very rich mentoring relationships that will shape you and the course of your career and your personal trajectory as well as your professional growth. So, and that is connected to my belief about the universe. And I have this strong held belief that love, power, and leadership have something in common. The more you share love, power, or leadership, the more of each of those things, the more love, the more power, the more leadership is available in the universe for others to experience. And so if young people can activate connections and a network, they will set themselves up to be involved and to learn leadership. How about you? You're working with graduate students. What are you going to do?
I am. I think it's for me when I'm working with my graduate students from the University of Houston, go Cougs. I'm thinking about just making them ready for day one, right? So everything that we do together when we are working with a client or working with a group of clients is how do we get you ready for that day one, the day after you graduate? Like, how do we get you there? And just making sure that they understand that even though they might be new to our profession, they don't have a whole lot of like experience in the real world, quote unquote, they matter and they can start to grow kind of those experiences that will lead to opportunities to impact change, both big and small. And so it's definitely what I try to do is try to grow their confidence and try to give them resources so that they can envision themselves as leaders and change makers wherever they land, whether it be in public education or medical or something else. So that's why I try to grow their confidence, because it's scary. It's kind of daunting. And when you look up and you see all these fabulous individuals with tons and tons of years experience, a very long resume, and that kind of thing, you're like, who am I? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Right. And so just making those opportunities available for them, I think that's been a consistent theme as well throughout all of our speakers, is making sure that we as leaders, we are finding and opening doors to opportunities so that others can lead where they're at, and so they can grow that skill set and that muscle. And so then when there is something very maybe formal as far as a leadership role or a project or whatever, they've already built that confidence, and so they can be even more impactful from the first moment of that new project. So, Judy, what are you doing this summer to refuel yourself? You've had quite the year in addition to all this podcasting stuff.
This summer,
What are you
I'm
doing this
spending
summer?
time that is qualitatively different than during the school year with my grandchildren. We have taken one camping trip so far and taken a really cool hike in the mud because we've had a lot of rain here in North Texas. We're going to do a week at the beach in July, and looking forward to that, and just looking forward to just different rhythm of life in terms of what we do together. I'm going to join a book club with my 10-year-old grandson, Cameron, and he's going to give me 3 books to read. And then he's going to make the questions that we discuss in our book club. I'm really interested to see which books he wants me to read. And just hang out with family. I'm also thinking about um, refinishing an antique dresser that I have because I love working with wood. And I'm also thinking about that I want to just physically move more, walks outdoors, not on the stationary bike indoors, but walks outdoors in green spaces. So I'm just refueling with family time, with me time, and with being outdoors. How about you?
I am not doing anything super exciting, Judy, to be very honest with you. I am working a ton, which I feel super grateful for. You know, when we're taking on these new projects that I'm working on, I just gotta work, and I just gotta put in the hours and be creative and that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna be working a lot. It's gonna be hot outside anyway, so I am good working in AC and developing some projects and some ideas. We're going to California for a wedding in late June, so I'm Googling my way through what to do with a 3-year-old in California. Um, we're thinking a theme park, but it might not. I don't know. I don't know if I think he's ready. Our son is ready. I'm sure he would have a great time. I don't know if me and my husband are like mentally
Are
ready for
you
that
what
quite
part of
yet.
California? Northern or southern?
We are going to San Diego area.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah. So it's gonna be
yeah, it's
gorgeous.
going to be
It's
gorgeous.
gonna be gorgeous.
I would pick
Yeah.
Legoland over Disneyland for a 3-year-old.
Okay.
You all will love it. All 3 of you will love it.
So yeah, so I'll be working a bunch, and I mean that's the big trip that we have coming up. But I am excited to just be able to catch up with some of my friends that are having a bit of a break this summer from being on campus, and maybe going out to dinner and maybe watching a movie or two. So that's the plan for mostly indoor activities. Though I can't like a nature hike outside, Judy. Nah, it's too hot. Too hot. Too hot. This Canadian just sweats way too easily. And then, okay, so last question. So, what's something that you're doing this summer that's going to help you on your leadership journey? Given everything that you've learned this season, how are you going to keep on moving forward on that?
Well, knowing me, I I'm pretty sure I'm going to read to uh, learn new things, to think new thoughts, to challenge myself. One really cool book that I'm reading right now, just finishing up and have yet to do the application portion, but I'm committed to it, is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And really interesting. So I'm a big picture person, I'm strategic, and that's my comfort zone, thinking big thoughts, directions. And so I need to strengthen my skills in terms of those micro habits that lead to significant change. So the book is really interesting, really easy to read. And I think you have a story about it. So tell us your story because you just finished engaging with Atomic Habits.
I did. So I am working on habit stacking personally right now, which is this, I'm going to say it in a really layman's way, but basically it's just adding more things to your to do list rather than trying to get rid of a habit that no longer serves you, which seems counterintuitive, but it's working all right. So, one thing I had noticed about myself as of late, maybe not as of late, for a while now, is I noticed that I was spending a lot more time on social media than was actually like beneficial for me in the morning, right? So, like in the morning, and side note, my husband, hey Andy, he listens to every single episode. So, he's about to laugh really hard. So, in our house, Andy in the morning gets himself ready to go to work while I get our son ready for daycare. And what would happen normally is they would leave the house, and then I would grab my phone and just sit in a chair in our bedroom for maybe like half hour, just scrolling through social media. And I wasn't really like achieving anything by doing that. It was just kind of like a zone out, maybe. I don't know. I don't know why. I'm sure somebody can analyze that for me. But anyway, it just wasn't really helping me towards any kind of goals, right? And so, what I decided to do as a habit stacking thing is change two things about my morning. The first thing is when I get up, I now put on my exercise clothes straight away. And then I go into our son's bedroom and get him ready for daycare. The other thing I make available too is my headphones, right? So I put my headphones near the front door so that as soon as my son and my husband leave the house, I go grab my headphones and I just head out the door pretty much right after them. And I just start to walk while I'm listening to a 30-minute, 45-minute podcast rather than going to find my chair and sitting and then starting to scroll. And so for me, like that approach to atomic habits and habit stacking has been really beneficial. And I've been doing that for the last like 3 weeks. And it's almost I don't want to say it, I want to like knock on wood. It's like become a non-negotiable now part of my morning. It's a no-brainer. Like that's just what I do now. So I hope you find similar success in your endeavors of atomic habits.
Me too. Me too. I'm excited. I'm going to start habit stacking, and some of the other suggestions are very practical, very doable, very bite size, and so I'm looking forward to it. James Clear is the author. Did a good job with the book. So, um, and I'm linking that to leadership. To your question about what am I doing about leadership in terms of personal leadership and self discipline and just quality of life, enjoying life is an important part of leadership. So that's my connection. What are you doing to grow your leadership this summer?
So I'm trying to find professional development opportunities that I can do either at like low cost or no cost, and through like formal professional development channels and informal ones, just on various topics that I know for me, I could definitely continue to grow at. So again, like I'm building my foundational skills like on my own. So then when the opportunity comes where I can use that skill in a group setting or whatever, I'm already ready to go. So I have a couple of websites that I want to check out. that I want to look through and see if it makes sense for me. But basically, like I have this really cute notebook that like I like to watch videos and like kind of take notes like I'm in class, like in a lecture, and scheduling myself time during my week. And it's not like huge amounts of time. It's like maybe 30 minutes a day to just maybe watch a video or two, take some notes, and then move on with my day. So that's how I'm gonna keep on growing this summer.
Well, I can't wait to see what kind of feedback we get for season 2 from our listeners, and look forward to doing the fun thing of planning forward with you towards season 2 of LeadSpeak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd like to encourage our community to share um, our podcast out, whether you follow us on your favorite social media channel or you actually send the link to a friend or a colleague. And just to share it out. I think that's like one of the things, one of the biggest barriers is, there's a lot of podcasts out there and there's a lot of different ways that people can spend their time. And we hope that if you found value in what you heard this season, and there's things that you've walked away with having more conversations about, we would certainly appreciate you sharing that out with your friends and colleagues so that we can continue to grow our community, so that we can bring more voices to this platform, from different parts of the country with different lengths of professional experiences, with different backgrounds, so that we can make this a really well-rounded and inclusive space for everybody to come and get their learning on. So thank you, Judy. This was delightful.
This was so fun, and I hope that all of our listeners have just a really, really rock solid, fun filled summer.
That's right. And then we'll catch you guys later on in a couple months.